Like to call to order the Riviera Beach Budget Workshop, August 19, 2019 at 7:52. Madam Roll Call.
Mayor Ronnie Felder, Chairperson Kashamba Miller Anderson,
Present.
Chair Pro Tem Julia Botel.
Here.
Councilperson Trodrick McCoy.
Here.
Councilperson Shirley Lanier. Councilperson Douglas Lawson.
Here.
City Manager Jonathan Evans.
Present.
City Clerk Claudine Anthony is present. City Attorney Don Nguyen.
Here.
You may proceed.
And we have Shirley Lanier on the dais. We're going to forego the moment of silence and the pledge. We did that a little earlier with our previous meeting, so we'll go ahead and go to City Manager.
Madam Chair and members of the City Council, the item before you this evening is applicable to the fiscal year 2019-2020 City of Riviera Beach Employee Benefits Renewal. We have our representatives from the Garing Group that will provide a presentation concerning some proposed plan modifications, and then staff has some additional information they would like to share related to the proposal that's in front of you this evening. So without further ado, representatives from the Garing Group.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Christian Bergstrom. I'm a senior benefits consultant with the Garing Group. I also have my colleagues here, Shauna Whittingham and Kurt Garing, the president and CEO of the Garing Group. We also have representatives in the audience from Aetna Healthcare and United Healthcare as well, as they will be part of the discussions this evening. What we were going to talk about is the medical claims experience that you currently are having with Aetna, as well as utilization trends. We're going to be talking about the renewal as well as proposal review, because we did go to market for the city. Also, some recommendations that are being proposed from us and staff, but of course, those can change. Plan redesign, talking about introducing some consumerism models to the city. We're going to talk about a benchmark about what other cities are doing in the area, as well as a technology solution that's going to be implemented this coming fiscal year, known as BenTech, and then your ancillary renewals such as your dental, vision, and life insurance. All right, so medical claims experience, the city is fully insured, and so you pay a set premium based on what plan somebody chooses at the beginning of the year, and then claims are paid, and that derives a loss ratio. And then we also look at claims costs per employee per year, and then you have your claims costs, but then you also have your premium increase. So in 2016-2017, we had an 88% loss ratio, with your average claims cost being $10,596 per employee per year. In 2017, you had a 3% premium increase. However, you had an 11% increase in your claims cost. So there you formed a 97% loss ratio. And then for this year, for 2018-2019, the current loss ratio is 103%, meaning that your claims are exceeding the premiums being taken in. So right now we're at a point where the insurance company is now not only not having any money for the administration of the plan, but also the claims have exceeded the premium as well. So there it derives the loss. You did have a premium increase of 4.99% for the beginning of this fiscal year, but as you can see, the claims have increased 8%. So what is triggering this? And looking at your claims data over the past 12 months, this is not an anomaly in the industry, but a majority of your claims are derived from inpatient claims and high dollar cost claims. So individuals, we see on your plan, there's cancer, transplants that are occurring. So that is where your trends and why these claims costs are going up. What we also like to look at when focusing on plan design and make recommendations is the cost sharing. And that's basically how much the employees pay versus what the plan pays or what the city actually pays. And last year, the city paid 90% of all of the claims. So 10% of that was derived from co-payments and deductibles paid for by the employees. This year, as costs have increased, the employer, again, the city is picking up more of the cost share of that because the co-payments and deductibles have relatively remained the same. So the employees aren't paying any more than they did in previous years. And then there we just have a breakdown on that slide on the right of your catastrophic claimant, your claims with and without catastrophic claimants. One other aspect of what is driving the cost is pharmacy. And there's been exponential growth in the pharmacy claims, but that is not unheard of either currently in the health insurance market. The amount that the pharmacy claims have increased approximately 32% from $1,118 last year to $1,477 this year. The average copayment has gone up 36%, what the plan is paid has gone up 36% over this last year. So in starting the discussions with Aetna and where the claims experience were running, their initial renewal called for a 32% increase, which is approximately $2.2 million increase to the city's operating budget. They did come back another month later, and they revised the renewal to a 27% increase. Based upon our projections and based on where your plan is currently performing, we would anticipate roughly a 25% increase in premiums. Then, as of our best and final offer look that we had with Aetna, they came in at around 21.5%. However, as of today's meeting, they reviewed more claims experience, which is not reflected on this slide, because this has just happened today with updated claims experience, that they are able to adjust their best and final offering to an 18% increase with no plan design changes. So that means all the copays, the deductibles would remain the same. So overall, that would be an 18% increase. Now for the proposal review. We did receive 3 proposals. We received proposals from United Healthcare and Neighborhood Health Partnership, Cigna Healthcare, and Florida Blue, which is Blue Cross Blue Shield of Florida. Based upon the initial offers, the lowest overall increase was an 8.6% increase with United Healthcare, 18% with Cigna, and 19% with Florida Blue. During the best and final offers, there was no change from United Healthcare at 8.6%. Cigna Healthcare did reduce their rates to 16.6% increase, and Florida Blue did not adjust. And then now with the Aetna data, they're at 18% with no plan changes. And these would be with mirrored plans, so mirrored co-payments. Now, what we have entered into in discussions with city staff was to discuss high deductible health plan and introduce a spending account for the employees. This introduces consumerism. Employees can pick now or choose lower cost options, which are not transparent under a copay plan. So they just know that under a copay plan, it's a set price. But under a high deductible health plan, there is a deductible, and then there's coinsurance associated with it. And then you link it to an account that has funding. So I'll get into how that works in just a few more slides. So the lowest overall bidder for this design model is transitioning. It would have to transition to United Healthcare and Neighborhood Health Partnership. And this introduces a high deductible health plan with a reimbursement account as the base offering. Your existing base HMO copay plan and your existing point of service plans would become buy-up plans for your retirees. And I believe that this presentation is the original one. So what you have printed in front of you is the updated presentation. So on
Wait a minute, the last 2 bullet points are not on here.
they are on your written one. I don't know.
It's not on the written one. It's on there, but not here with the papers that we have. So if you all want to add it to it. you
Oh,
can.
goodness. I'm sorry about that.
So outside of that, is anything else different?
I changed the slides around, I'm sorry. And so, yeah, so anyway, the rates are guaranteed for 15 months. So the city had asked to transition to a January 1st effective date. So this would begin October 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2020. And then this saves the city approximately $1.8 million, which is on slide 10 of your written paper. Am I looking? Is that there? So the fiscal impact of this plan is a $1.8 million savings from the city's operating budget. And what we are proposing is using, of that $1.8 million, $1 million to fund accounts for employees, which would then create an $800,000 net savings to the city's operating budget. On slide 11 of your written packet, I'm sorry, it's not on this presentation that was uploaded. Again, to reiterate, premiums are guaranteed for 15 months. Then also, there would be a transition to paying at the end of the month, your premiums at the end of the month, versus paying at the beginning of the month, which would allow for billing accuracy. So what you're taking out of your payroll would match up with what you pay as your premium. This transition will allow for no payroll deductions to take place in the month of September 2019 for employees that have existing deductions, because currently payroll deductions are taken a month in advance, and so now that would no longer be necessary. So employees would basically have a free month of not paying for their insurance. And then this will save the city approximately $500,000 in this fiscal year due to this transition, because the money has already been collected. So now, moving on to slide 12, which is slide 10 on the screen. This new plan with United Healthcare would become this new base plan offering where the city would fund its employee dollars for the premiums. And what this would do, since there is no cost share, the city pays 100% of the cost of the employee-only coverage. There would be no change in that. The employees that only cover themselves would still have free healthcare coverage. The employee plus one, so anybody that covered one dependent, would see a savings of $432 in the year, or around $36 a month. And then those that carry more than one dependent, so the family units, would have a savings of $625.44 for the year. And the city does plan to transition to a 24 deduction pay cycle versus a 26 deduction pay cycle. So the months in which there are 3 paychecks, the third paycheck would have no deductions.
Walter's happy.
Thank you, Walter.
So the recommendation on the next page is the city would provide a high deductible health plan while funding $2,000 in a health reimbursement account for full-time employees and a $1,000 for part-time employees. This plan does use the Neighborhood Health Partnership point of service network in the state of Florida and the United Healthcare network outside of the state of Florida. The HRA, known as the Health Reimbursement Account, is used to offset the deductibles, coinsurance, and copayments for qualified expenses covered by the health plan. Then any unused funds would roll year to year and can be used in future years up to the annual out-of-pocket maximum. So for example, if nobody used their money in year 1, in year 2, they would have their complete out-of-pocket maximum covered, for example. And I'll get into a little bit more how the account works in just a few more slides. One differential with this plan is employees and their covered dependents will have to designate a primary care physician at the time of enrollment, or one would be assigned to them. The PCP, the primary care physician, may differ per person covered, so each family member could choose their own primary care physician. The plan is open access, so anyone can visit any other provider, such as a specialist, without a referral from the PCP. Employees with dependents out of state may enroll in this plan. However, because it is a Florida plan, retirees that are out of state would be required to enroll in the United Choice POS plan. So this is what the plan looks like. There is in and out of network benefits. For the in-network deductible is $1,500. For the family, the deductible is $3,000. And for the family, that has to be met collectively. You meet it collectively as an entire family. So that means one or all has to meet the $3,000. So once the deductible is satisfied, you pay 20% of the contracted amount until the out-of-pocket maximum is satisfied. So it's not what the provider bills to the insurance company, it's what the contract allows for. And this applies to all services: primary care, specialist, lab, urgent care, ER, inpatient, outpatient, everything under the health plan. Preventive care is covered at 100%, so there's no cost share for that. So based upon CDC guidelines that follow the preventive health care dialogue in this country, that is no cost share. So they would not have to meet their deductible or pay co-insurance for preventive care. Prescriptions are subject to a copayment after the deductible is satisfied. Then the out-of-pocket maximum in a year is $3,000 for a single individual, or $6,000 for the family collectively met. And that is inclusive of the deductible and the coinsurance and the copayments. So in any given year, that would be the out-of-pocket maximum. So how does this work? Somebody in this plan would visit their doctor just like they would in today's plan, and they would receive a discounted contractual rate, as I just mentioned. United would receive the claim from the provider and process it based on the deductible amount and the covered expenses based upon their negotiated contracted discounts. With the auto pay feature underneath the piggy bank, United would automatically pay the provider from the health reimbursement account. If there isn't enough money in the health reimbursement account to cover the cost, then that's when the employee or dependent would have an out-of-pocket expense. Then an explanation of benefits is produced, just like it is today, showing what the doctor's fee was, what the discount was, and then the amount deducted from the HRA account to show the employees what dollar amount they have remaining in their account. And this is all available on United's mobile app and on their website. So in this instance, in the blue, for single coverage, it's being proposed $2,000 being contributed in this health reimbursement account. The single deductible is $1,500 of the contracted amount. So the HRA account covers 100% of the deductible amount. Then there is 20% of the contracted amount. So Once an employee satisfies that deductible, they have another $500 remaining. But their out-of-pocket maximum that an employee could see in a year would be $1,000. For family coverage, the amount would be the same. $2,000 would be contributed. $3,000 is the deductible amount. The coinsurance, once they satisfy the $3,000, of which $2,000 would come from the health reimbursement account, they would then pay 20% of the contracted amount to the out-of-pocket maximum of $4,000. So what does this mean? So a single employee would have to incur $7,500 in healthcare expenses to reach the $1,000 single out-of-pocket. And a family would have to achieve $15,000 of medical bills in order to hit the $4,000 out-of-pocket. So, and we look at what the employees currently have. So the new out-of-pocket maximum with the health reimbursement account would be $1,000. They would not have any payroll deduction savings because that still would remain $0. There is the potential of the current health plan of having a $1,500 out-of-pocket maximum. So there is a potential savings to the employee of $500 per year enrolling in this plan. So slide 20 of your packet, looking at the family now, the family out-of-pocket maximum, whether you're +1 or 2 or more, it remains the same at $4,000. The payroll deduction savings to a +1 is $432 a year and $625 for 2 or more. The current out-of-pocket maximum for a family is $3,000, regardless if they're +1 or 2 or more. So there is a potential additional cost per family of $568 if they're enrolled in +1, or $375 if they're enrolled in +2 or more. There's approximately a 98% match of network providers. United has also stated that they would actively recruit any non-network provider upon request from any of your employees. And those that are currently under treatment, they would have to follow all transition of care guidelines to make sure that they are transitioned properly into their network, and if they have to change doctors or remain with their current doctors. All major facilities and urgent care centers in the local area would be in network. Those include Palm Beach Gardens Medical Center, St. Mary's Medical Center, Jupiter, Good Sam, and others listed there on page 21.
Could you change the slide?
For the,
Skip the slide.
it's not on this, on the electronic version, it's on the paper version. I apologize. Then on slide, discussing the benchmarking, we looked at other employers, other municipal employers in the region that offer a high deductible health plan. So you'll see West Palm Beach, Boynton Beach, Delray Beach, North Palm, Jupiter, and the Solid Waste Authority all offer a high deductible health plan. And then we looked at what the employer is paying as a % of the premium and compared it what Riviera Beach does for both single and family. And then based upon the recommendation of the funding the deductible, the % of what the employer contributes in a deductible for the account. Then also the account funding arrangement, whether it's a health reimbursement account or a health savings account. We're recommending a health reimbursement account here because there's greater flexibility with what the city decides to do with the funds versus a health savings account. It's more about what the employee wants. And then we then took into account the plan out-of-pocket maximums less the account. So you'll see that based upon the single coverage, a majority, you would have the lowest out-of-pocket maximum of any of the employers offering a plan with the account, and then you would be on par with all of the employers' out-of-pocket maximums that have the family coverage. So then, moving forward, talking about the benefit system and technology that's being introduced as part of our offering to the city, we are offering a product called BenTech, and what we wanted to do with this is to be able to manage your benefits all in one place, so they're not being managed on different systems in the city. There would be HR and payroll auditing every payroll period. The billing invoices will then coordinate with what is being taken out from payroll and will coordinate with the carrier's eligibility system. There will be real-time reporting, including discrepancies between payroll and the carriers, so we will know every pay period any discrepancies that come up. There will be exporting available for the city to use for its reporting under the Affordable Care Act that's required, as well as carrier eligibility reporting, so that carriers are going to have exactly what you have in your payroll system as a form of eligibility, and it will be all integrated because it is a third-party integration system. The ancillary renewals. The dental insurance would remain with Solstice Benefits. They have agreed to a no increase for the DHMO and DPPO plans at a 39-month rate guarantee. Employees, in this situation, if you do transition to United Healthcare, employees on Aetna's DHMO and DPPO would transition back to Solstice Benefits with a reduction in premium cost. The vision insurance will be maintained with Solstice Benefits at no increase for the next 39 months. And then life and disability insurance would remain with Unum at no increase for the next year. So on the last slide of your deck, the conclusion of this recommendation was to introduce a plan to allow for transparency in cost and improve consumerism and healthcare expenditures. Payroll deductions are less for dependents. There would be no payroll deductions in September. A transition to the 24 deductions per year versus 26 with 2 free payroll deductions per year. There would be a 15-month rate guarantee. Introducing the technology piece, billing processes will become more accurate and transparent. And this is a $800,000 net savings to the city's operating budget. So I can open this up to any questions, or if you have any questions for Aetna or United Healthcare, they have representatives in the audience as well.
All right, any questions, comments from the board?
Madam Chair, I'm just curious to know, I've heard of United Healthcare, but I've never heard of, what is, Neighborhood Health Partners? Is that the name of it?
Yes.
I've never heard of that name before, so I'm just kind of curious to know, the situation with United Healthcare.
Neighborhood Health Partnership is a fully owned insurance company by United Healthcare. It's one of their subsidiary companies. It was originally purchased when they were a local HMO, so they were only known in the South Florida market, and back when HMOs were popular. They have now since expanded throughout the state of Florida. Their network pretty much mirrors the United Healthcare network throughout the South Florida and Central Florida regions. And then, as indicated, if they do not have a network availability, then they use the United Healthcare network, and that would be in-network. So employees that would need to seek treatment, or their dependents that are out of state, they would use the United Healthcare network. Or if an employee wanted to go to MD Anderson or wanted to go to Massachusetts General for care, they would then use the United Healthcare network.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Go ahead.
Also on slide 21 in the handout that was provided, it says approximately 98% match of network providers. That's 98% compared to the existing provider that the city has. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think with any transition of carriers, you're going to find that there are some doctors that are in one and some that are not.
Mr. McCoy, did you have a comment?
Yes, Madam Chair. So you've actually, so what you're saying is 98% of the providers that's currently being offered under the Aetna plan is being offered under this NHP plan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there any, because I was unfamiliar with page 17, the auto pay automatically by HRAs, so is there any coordination of, does this provide for coordination of benefits if you had a second insurance or something like that?
Yes, it would.
So how does that work? I guess that would then be on file because
Yes, it would be on file with the insurance company. Mhm.
okay, I was unaware that there was access to the entire United Health plan region. I thought it was just the NHP network of providers. So you're saying that you can access,
So in Florida, you would use the NHP network. Then outside of the state of Florida, you would utilize the United Healthcare Network.
okay, so earlier you said central and south, so it's statewide,
Yes.
okay? So have we gotten to the point of determining exactly how we're funding the HRAs from the city and what that dollar amount looks like?
We have, and Mr. Sherman and I have a slide that we'll share with the board shortly. What we have done is that realistically, the savings associated with the plan modifications would be $1.8 million. And it was our determination to utilize $1 million to invest in the HRAs for the purposes of creating that opportunity so it mitigates any out-of-pocket expenses for the employees. One of the things that I have to, inform the board is that these types of plans only work if there's a commitment to provide additional monies in those accounts in subsequent years. Because if you're only going to fund it this year and then you don't fund it next year, then you find yourself in a situation where an employee may have utilized a large portion of the money. So the intent is to move a lot of your employees that are on your existing plans that would be considered buy-ups onto the high deductible health plan with the health reimbursement account, and then consistently put in some seed money and whatever the board decides, whether it's $1,000 or $2,000 annually. We believe that taking this step would help us control our healthcare costs, because based on the numbers that we see, that we can continuously expect to find ourselves in a situation where we're having double-digit renewals. And so we think that this is the best opportunity we have to really insert some consumerism into the process, but also have a better control and more transparency with our health program. But that is something that every year the board is going to have to make a commitment how much money they would like to seed in those particular accounts. It's not something that would be carte blanche $2,000 every year. That's a policy decision that you, the board, would have to make.
Okay, so to that point, 16, there was no premium increase. Page 3. What you just explained, Mr. Manager, that's assuming that there are premium increases due to increase in the claims paid by the carrier. But I don't know if I so much like the $800,000 saving compared to now we're going to a different network. Obviously, we've been reassured that I think 98% of the providers are going to be on the same. I shared the same concern that Councilwoman Lanier said. Well, what is NHP? Because I'd never heard of it. Now, I'm familiar with United, and I know the school district uses United, and that's pretty, at least it's pretty well known in the area. And I thank you for the reassurance, because I was going to ask about MD Anderson, like if you needed to go and use a provider out of the area or Moffitt or something like that for specialized treatment, but that wasn't my understanding of the network providers. But I just don't know that I can agree to a plan that saves us $800,000 when we're potentially changing carriers. Now, if there's some other options to go back to try to increase the employees' portion to the max, whatever the collective bargaining agreement or whatever the union agreement is, I'm certainly open for that. But I would like to see what other options. We've only gotten this now. Actually, we've only probably had 24 hours to look at this because of, I didn't know that we were this far along in the process. So I certainly got some concerns about the high deductible plan altogether. And my choice wouldn't be NHP or United. Mr. Manager.
Madam Chair, if I may, and if the consultants can assist on this as well, is that the high deductible health plan with the health reimbursement accounts or health savings accounts has started to be industry trends in the healthcare industry because of the uncontrollable costs that are associated with healthcare. If you look at our claims to premium ratio over the last couple of years, you have a situation where your loss ratio from 2016 and 18 was 88%, 97%, and 103%. In positive years, you really want to have that number under 60%. So historically, if you look at the last couple of years and based on the actuarial science, that's what determines what the rate renewals are, we don't have the data that's going to lend itself to expect that we're going to get a reduction in premiums over the next couple of years. And if you all want to speak specifically on the health savings accounts or high deductible health plans in its entirety, and then kind of what our exposure has been as the city concerning our plans to, if we were to stay in the same situation, where would we find ourselves, 15 months from today?
Right.
Madam Chair, I want to reserve an opportunity to follow up following that in response to Mr. Manager.
Okay.
Sure. Under high deductible health plans, yes, they are probably now the norm of what's being offered in particularly private employers, but as well as you saw in the benchmark of local municipal employers as well offering those style plans. From our experience, high deductible health plans claims costs tend to go down because we introduce more consumerism. Individuals pay more attention of how they are spending their dollars because that's their $2,000 to use, and so they're going to want to see that it goes further. So that's one aspect of it. But then also the city, if the city keeps maintaining a co-payment plan, the employees pay the exact same amount, but your claims are going up. So the city continues to pay then more, while the employees theoretically pay less of the actual healthcare spend. So overall, renewals of high deductible health plans are typically lower than that of traditional co-payment style plans that are in place today.
All right,
Madam Chair.
Mr. McCoy, did you want to go down?
Yes, I like that word, consumerism. I never heard of it in these terms, but I guess that's us telling the employees they got to have some skin in the game and they have to be more conscious about their spendings. But, I think about when you look at, in any circumstances, increasing the deductible, that's good from a city's perspective. But if you just look at the number one reason why people file for bankruptcy is because of medical costs and medical bills. And unless we're talking and having the same conversation about increasing wages proportionately, then I can kind of go along with it. But now requiring employees to meet, even with the $2,000 cushion that we'll give to an employee, a family plan now is, I think, the deductible is it 3,000 or 4,000? So, you know,
But if I'm not mistaken, that in the event that they are a full-time employee and provided that $2,000 amount, that conceivably after the co-insurance, that the most out-of-pocket that they would see themselves pay would be an additional $1,000.
Correct.
And then after that, all their services that they would receive through the plan would be at no cost.
no,
Correct.
no. So if an employee, can you repeat that scenario? Because I thought the $2,000 applies towards the $3,000 family deductible.
The family or the individual. So on page
16?
I think a better slide to show that would be on page 18 and actually 20 that speaks to the family.
Right, so they go at the 20% rate after they come up with the $1,000 difference.
No, sir.
If you can walk us through that.
Right.
just-
So once the deductible is satisfied, the $1,500 or $3,000, then they pay 20% of the next $6,000. So the out-of-pocket maximum on the health plan on paper is $6,000, but you're giving them $2,000 up front to, as the manager said, seed money. So the maximum their out-of-pocket would be, that they would pay in their medical bills, would be $4,000. And then, as on this slide here, on slide 20 in your packet, they are also going to see a savings in their payroll deductions as well, from what's being taken out of their paychecks. So moving to this scenario, the families could see additional cost if they have a catastrophic event. So they're only going to hit this if they have up to $15,000 in healthcare expenses. And then your employee onlys then would have actually a savings. If they had a catastrophic event, they would have a savings of approximately $500 if they had a catastrophic claim.
And for clarity's sake, how many lives do we have that are on the plan as far as employee only and employee plus one and family coverage? Do we have that? I think Mr. Sherman may have that on.
Sure. So you have approximately 320 people that are have employee-only coverage, and then you have approximately 180 people that have family coverage.
Madam Chair.
Hold on 1 minute.
Is there a difference between the plus one and then family coverage? You said,
No, there is not. There's just a difference in their payroll deduction.
okay, makes sense.
You done, Mr. McCoy?
Yes.
Mr. Lawson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. What would be our current costs if we stay with the current employer of out-of-pocket for the employees?
If you stay with your current plan, it's $1,500 for employee only and $3,000 for family.
And then the savings that they're gonna see was the savings they're gonna see per pay cycle.
Per pay cycle, they would be saving, that's on slide 12, they would, employee plus one would save $35.96 per month, or roughly $432 a year. And then if they have two or more family coverage, they would save $52.12 a month, or roughly $625 a year.
And the other plans, plans would be buy-up plans that the employee would pay for in the
Correct.
event that they did not want to go on to the high deductible health plan, correct?
Correct.
And what exactly is that?
I think we have one of the slides that speak to that. So that would be the employee plus one and then the family cost. So that would be, right now, under the current employee cost is $356 per month. Under the new proposal, it would be $320, and employee plus family, $516, and then you have $464.
This is the buy-up?
That would be for the buy-up, correct?
No, that's the current, that
Oh,
would
that's
be
the current.
going to the high deductible plan.
Okay, where's the, do we have the slide on what the buy-up cost would be?
No, but I can pass that out,
Okay,
which is actually in the agendas for the Wednesday meeting.
oh, okay.
No, we have,
And again, what
We have
is the
multiple.
definition of buy-up? What is that exactly?
The buy-up would be similar to the existing formula that's currently in place for the health insurance plan. So not the high deductible health plan with the co-insurance, it would be your standard premium and your negotiated rate for co-pays and doctor's visits and those and the like. So it would be something that it's more traditional with what we're. Okay. So
and
it
when
would
you get this
page
packet,
7.
it would be page 7.
Yeah. So, and I'll give an opportunity for the board to take a look at it. So if you can walk us through the other two plans that will be part of the three plan offerings that the city would be, in essence, proposing to the employees to select. The one is that the city traditionally always pays for the employee-only plan, and that's what we're trying to do, is to shift the employee-only plan to the high deductible plan with the health reimbursement account. But if you can walk the board through the other two.
Sure. So the plan on the far left mirrors your HMO plan,
Page 7.
page
Seven.
7. So this plan mirrors what you currently have today with Aetna. It does use the Neighborhood Health Partnership Network. The deductibles and out-of-pocket maximum, along with the co-payments, match what you have today. Then the premiums below, the $991 for employee only, $1,387 for employee plus one, and $1,566 for employee plus family. So in the scenario, the city pays 100% of the base plan, so that would be now the high deductible plan. So the premium would be $800.78 is what the city would fund. So the employee would pay the difference between $800.78 to any of those other premiums to buy up. So if an individual wanted to stay with a co-payment plan, it would cost them $190 a month. That's the $991.21 under employee only, minus the $800.78 of the high deductible plan.
Let me ask this question while we have a little bit of time. I've had a couple of employees approach me about their spouse having insurance at their employer, and how other entities have incentivized them to, in essence, leave the plan, the existing plan that their employer provides, and go on to their spouse's plan, and it would be something that the city would budget for, let's say, $800 per month per employee, but in lieu of that, saying that, okay, if you opt out of the plan and you get, let's say, 15 people to participate in that, that you would pay them $100 per pay, so $200 per month, because of the savings that would be associated with them not being in the plan, and then, of course, the exposure that you would be, in essence, and the risk you would be taking away from the city. Was that contemplated in the plan design, or are you aware of other communities that have deployed that strategy to help address some of the escalating costs?
There are other employers and other communities in the area that do have what they call an opt-out benefit. So they would opt out of the health insurance. Now, they would typically need to be covered by another qualified health plan, because under the Affordable Care Act, you do have to be covered by a qualified plan. So that would protect the city from any penalty of an employee just saying, well, I don't want health insurance at all. So they would have to be enrolled there in a qualified plan, and typically it's no more than $100 or $150 a month to get off the plan. But typically you don't see necessarily your high-risk individuals coming off the plan, because typically the municipal plans are richer than in design than a private employer.
Anyone have any questions or comments?
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
So currently, I'm looking at if they choose this buyout plan, it would increase our employees' cost for employee plus one by about $230 for employee plus one, and $250 for employee plus family.
Correct.
Now, did we also take a look at a high deductible plan through our current provider, through Aetna?
Yes. They have proposed, depending on what you would like to do. It's not in your packet because this was just proposed as of today. It would be a 6.3% increase in the premiums to offer a high deductible health plan like we just discussed. So there would not be any savings to try to offset funding the accounts, or you could do that and we would have to discuss and go back with finance on how those accounts would be funded. As we would not make the recommendation of going to a high deductible health plan without having an account, because then that really disparages the employee and what they spend on their healthcare expenses.
Chair,
Go ahead.
I want to ask, you said this company says a 6.3% increase. What is the increase for the one that you're offering?
8.6.
8.6.
It's actually, no, it's actually, because this slide is based off of what your current enrollment is. So when you fund at your current premium levels to actually the $800.78, it's actually a 10% savings off of what you're currently paying. And that is where we've discussed with finance there, that derives the $1.8 million in savings from the operating budget.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I have a question about something that I remember having a conversation about the last time we talked about health insurance for employees, and that had something to do with if our increase went over 5%. Can you explain that?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. We do have in our union contracts, I believe there's provisions in there that if it does go over a 10% increase, that conceivably you could pass the cost on to the employees. And so in lieu of even considering that option, that is why we looked at coming forward with a high deductible health plan with a health reimbursement account, so we don't have a situation where we're passing on health insurance costs to the employees, understanding that we have some employees throughout the city that their wages are not progressing in a manner that we'd like. So this provides us a little bit more financial liquidity as we go through the budget process to be able to address some of the salary inequities that we have. And I can tell you, if the board chooses to deviate from this proposal that's in front of you for consideration at your Wednesday meeting, it then poses some fiscal challenges in the budget where we're going to have to make some sizable adjustments because of the nature of the increase, and we can anticipate, and maybe HR can provide some additional clarity as to how we're running. As well, you already seen the data. We're running 103% claims to premium ratio, so the trend is probably still going on. So we run the risk of seeing another increase that will be sizable in subsequent years. And I ask the question because usually you can throw out, some catastrophic claims or those things as outliers, but based on the actuarial information, we still would have found ourselves with a 20% increase based on the information that we've experienced over the last couple of years.
A follow-up. I would really like to have the opportunity to sit down with somebody from HR to help me understand this better. Is there a chance that I'd like to obviously do that before Wednesday night?
Yeah, we can certainly do that, and if it's the board's pleasure, we can maybe provide some examples as to if Joe Q employee went through a situation on the existing plan versus the high deductible health plan, what would be the exposure and what would be the benefits or issues, to provide a little bit more clarity, because obviously when you're talking about health insurance, it's a touchy subject because you're talking about the health and welfare of your workforce, and then you have the other side is that we only have a finite amount of fiscal resources. So we can work with the consultant group to provide a little bit more information prior to your decision on Wednesday.
That's what I'd like.
And if the board chooses to go in this fashion, rest assured that we will go out to all the employee groups and have educational sessions, as well as inviting their spouse and whoever the healthcare decision maker is in the home to be present to provide some additional information and clarity, so people know that you're not going to switch your doctors, or you're not going to find yourself in a situation where you're in a plan that doesn't perform as your previous plan. And I think that's some of the concerns that we want to address for the employees, to know that there is a network here. It is an extension of United Healthcare, and there shouldn't be any concerns that the employees have with respect to being able to access services when needed.
If I could follow up, it's that example, that provision of scenarios that I would be most interested in seeing.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
That is the educational purpose, Mr. Evans, would be the biggest concern for me, because right now, looking at the numbers line by line is just one concern, but the employee that has those medical issues and concerns are not going to see this. They're not going to see that it's only going to be an additional cost of a couple $100 with a catastrophic circumstance. They'll see that their deductible is going up to $6,000, but the reimbursement of the $2,000, the savings on a per pay cycle period, an annual period, will only increase their actual expense by, I would say, $500 to $600 for the year if they had a catastrophic issue or had to see the doctor and max out their deductible. My concern is that educational process, number one, and then also number two, making sure that our employees are comfortable with switching from a provider that we've been with for a number of years, because their doctor is a relationship they have. Their physicians are the relationships they have. And regardless of the savings, I'm sure we can find other areas before starting with our employees to actually change and to offset that cost. But I just want to make sure we have a proper plan in place before we make this decision on Wednesday.
Do we have anyone else that have any questions or comments?
Couple things, Madam Chair. I want to hear from Aetna, and before that, I have a couple questions. Does this HRA, it doesn't go with the employee, am I correct, if they leave employment?
Correct. However, it is up to the city's discretion to allow that.
Okay. Mr. Evans, the much larger conversation that has to happen, irrespective of which plan or which provider or which carrier we choose, is what we're about to commit to, and that's not even provided for, is, how do we sustain putting forth an additional, and, you know, I don't know how you calculated 1 million. I was probably a little more, but I'm guessing anywhere from 1.1 to 1.2 million dollars. How do we account for that additional every single year? I mean, if you're gonna use your scenario of suggesting that, you know, these are what we can kind of expect to occur going forward, I mean, that's, you know, we've already set the maximum millage, right? And I just don't know how we can make this conversation happen and all of this work in 2 or 3 days about something that we're gonna commit to for, I don't know, probably, at least, how often do we do these, insurance renewals?
Well,
Every 3 years?
Yeah, usually it's 3 years, but this is good. I think, well, the rates are good for 15 months, but it's usually an every 3-year process that you go through a competitive solicitation. And we discussed the same type of issue that we're discussing with the board today back in 2017 and projected that there would be well over $1 million worth of savings. So had we made the decision back in 17, we would have found ourselves with better information and an understanding as to how the plan functions. The benefit and how we're anticipating being able to fund the high deductible health plan and the health reimbursement accounts is that it still would be cheaper, and the savings that the organization would experience as a result of the change versus every year or every 15 months or what have you, getting the 28% increases where we may get the 6 or 8% increase. And if you budgeted for that gap or whatever that gap would be, that would be some savings that you would set aside to control. Some organizations have moved forward with that's the only plan that they offer, a high deductible health plan. So our concern is that if we don't look at it now, we're going to find ourselves in a situation where 30 to 35% is commonplace as it relates to our renewals. But yes, it's a lot of moving components, and we will bring back some real examples as to what happens if an employee that just utilizes the plan that has a catastrophic issue, what do they experience, and then what the other employee that, you know, has just basic health care needs, to provide a little bit more clarity to the board so you can make an informed public policy decision. The concern is that if we don't do something, we'll find ourselves in a situation where next year we will be discussing a 20-some% increase, and then we're going to have to look at how do we balance the budget. Because when we did show the board at the last presentation, the hidden paycheck scenario where you're almost at close to 45 to 51% of payroll for other ancillary benefits. So an employee that cost you $50,000 in wages is really costing you well over $100,000 to employ. So we're looking at ways that we can still be an employer and provide the services that are necessary, but try to control some of the cost, especially on the healthcare side.
Follow up, just two last things. Has the network already been set up of those providers that we
Yes.
would be able to see, I guess, when this information comes back to us again? Or I guess a link provided, I guess you can't send us all the providers. Right?
Yes, I mean, we can provide you a link of the providers, yes.
Okay, and then, you know, the other thing in response to your statement, Mr. Evans, that I'm just thinking, you know, I understand the savings piece and the increase in costs, but, you know, we have to weigh that with, you know, the intrinsic value of, if you look at organization-wide, 500 employees almost giving up and going to, you know, different coverage, and possibly that, you know, that point that Mr. Councilman Lawson made of losing a provider. And, you know, is that really a benefit to the city when you have that many people now possibly, you know, risking, you know, not having the same providers?
Well, and Councilman, to your point, is that, you know, the employees that choose to decide to stay with the existing or similar type plan design where the primary care physician doctor's visit is all, you know, $15 or what have you, they still have the opportunity to buy up, and those opportunities are still available to. This is only the segment, it speaks only specific to the segment where the city pays 100% of the health insurance cost. So, we can look at, what other plan modifications or tweaks we can make, but, I know the folks in the Garing Group have looked at this multiple ways, and HR has looked at this as well, as to what do we think is a plan that provides the coverage necessary and doesn't leave an employee out where their physician or what have you is not carried. And every year that we go through this process, I'm sure when the city went to Aetna and left another provider, you found yourself in the same situation where, there is that margin of error where you may 2% or 3%, a situation where a physician is now out of network. So it's common when you go through these types of renewal procedures.
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So I would like to know, will employees be able to make a comparison, particularly those who have a primary care provider that they're very fond of, who might not be in the new plan, or in the case of someone very near and dear to my heart, someone who has a very high-cost drug. If his high-cost drug, when will I know that person's high-cost drug will be covered or will not be covered, so that I can make a decision about buying up?
In the packet that we saw that was submitted on the board packet for Wednesday, there is a prescription drug list of all of the prescription medications that are covered and what tier of coverage that they are in. And then we will also provide you the link to the web address of where to find the providers in the NHP network.
Okay. Thank you.
Do we have anyone else with any comments?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to see if we can see a comparison or analysis from Aetna.
Tonight, or you're saying for them to submit it?
Right now.
Okay.
So, we just heard the whole NHP, if you don't mind.
No, what, are they prepared to go?
Well, I think if you're going to do that, I would also encourage the board to hear some comments from the entity that was the selected, or the one that went through the competitive solicitation process as well, only to be fair.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, so who's going to come first?
Kathy?
Good evening, everybody. Kathy
evening.
Aguirre, and I am the Vice President of Sales and Service for Aetna, Florida's Public and Labor segment. You have a tough decision to make today or on Wednesday, and I do want to make some points. So we've been your partner since 2016, and I think Gearing said it best. Your experience deserves a 25% increase. If you look at Cigna, if you look at Blue Cross, if you look at Aetna's proposal, we all came in very close. Actuarial work is actuarial work. We all came in very close. You got a claim, you pay a claim, and it's premium against claims. So, and I do this all the time. New business pricing sometimes is very aggressive. So is the price that United Neighborhood giving you sustainable? You got to think about that. So when I go back to our relationship when we started, we gave you a 2% increase the first year, a 0% increase the second year. And then our increases, as mentioned earlier today, were reasonable. And we tried to be good stewards and good partners. However, when we know there's 2 transplants potential in your claims experience, and over 50 people have claims over 50,000, and it is creeping up, we have to price your claims judiciously. We'd love to give you a 0% increase again, but it's not sustainable. So yes, today we went back in the spirit of showing you that we want to maintain your business and we want to maintain a long-term partnership. We figured out, how do we do this another year? What can we do to help you with the increase? But putting that aside, it needs to still be priced appropriately, or next year you're going to be faced with similar issues, even with picking a high consumer-driven plan, which does sometimes change behaviors. However, it is a significant change. So I want to point out that our price is in line with what Gearing mentioned. Actually, it's better at this point, since it does call for a 25% increase. My concern is you have an underpriced product. So you have a good product on the table with Neighborhood and United. There are competitors, and you have a good product with Aetna. But in all fairness, I do want to point out that we don't have restrictions to our network, meaning with Aetna, we are offering you a national network. Regardless of you living in Florida or living outside of Florida, you can go anywhere for routine care. So I know you got to peel the onion and you got to ask questions, and you can ask Neighborhood this question. If you are a member that lives in Florida and you want to go for routine care to New York, New Jersey, California, because your parents live there, you heard that there's a well-renowned doctor in that area, can you, on Neighborhood, access that national network? They'll have to answer that. I know that under Aetna, you can travel anywhere you want for routine care. You don't even need that out-of-network benefit. And if you want to save money now or in the future, maybe you consider dropping the out-of-network when you have a national player. So I say this in all fairness, you have a tough decision. We've been strong partners. While things were tough, we gave you reasonable increases. We cannot give you an increase that low because we will be having issues next year. So what we gave you is reasonable. If you do go with or consider Aetna's HRA, we have two options on the table. And based on clarification that we received on Friday, we gave you an adjusted plan design today. So we will fund what we had provided you prior to today was we would fund your HRA $500 on the single and $1,000 for family. So that was included in price. Today we stripped that out and we made that 3% adjustment, and we got you to the 6.2% on a 12-month basis or a 9.2% on a 15-month basis. If you wish for us to fund $500 for single and $1,000 for family, that rate adjustment is 7.5. There are options on the table. I just suggest that you ask the questions, why are they far off the competition? Blue Cross, Cigna, and Aetna were in line, and Neighborhood United was extremely aggressive. So ask those questions. We are here as a valued partner. We want to work with you. We want to keep our relationship, and we want to keep the doors open. Whatever decision you make today or on Wednesday, we respect, and we would be honored for you all to maintain the relationship. But if you choose to move, we would be honored to accept you back in the future when you get your subsequent renewals. Any questions?
We have any questions from the board? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Brian Garrison. I'm the Vice President of Sales for the South Florida Health Plan for United Healthcare /NHP. So there was a lot of very good points that Ms. Aguirre brought up just a few minutes ago. I think there's a lot of things that weigh into why our rates are so much lower. I think one of the things that we talked about, that Christian talked about, was network discounts or contracted rates. If you think of our contracted rates, we insure the school district of Palm Beach County. That drives a lot of membership, drives down network discounts, that drives down price. So that puts us in a position to be able to negotiate better contracts. That will be something that will be beneficial to the members, the employees of the school, of Palm Beach, Riviera Beach, sorry, where when they go to the physician, we have transparency tools. They'll be able to see actual contracted rates on myuhc.com, on the Health for Me application, where they can see the contracted rates for those facilities and physicians. There's a lot of things that are also done behind the scenes with respect to total cost of care. We don't just look at the network discounts, but we also peel back the onion, as Ms. Aguirre mentioned, doing a lot of things from a clinical perspective, identifying gaps in cares, those large claimants, those transplants, is getting our nurses engaged with those members and also with those physicians to try to drive down those costs. The other thing, NHP is not some second-rate carrier. We bought NHP in 2005. The network between United and NHP is virtually one-to-one from Dade all the way up into Indian River, St. Lucie County. There is not a deficiency from a network perspective that's any different from NHP to United. The other thing I want to point out is on the NHP Network Flex product that you're talking about offering to your HRA plan, it absolutely covers members outside. So if you have a member in Miami, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach that wants to travel to New York to see a physician, the Network Flex product allows you the ability to use the United Healthcare Choice Plus network and pay co-payments or deductibles like if you were right here in the network. So there's not a deficiency from a network perspective. I assure you, you will not see any, as mentioned earlier, when you make a change from one carrier to the other, yes, you're going to have one-off doctors that may not be on there. Facility-wise, you have every facility you could possibly want in the area, as Christian mentioned earlier. We are not buying the business. This is something that's consistent in the market. If you talk to to your consultants or anybody else. United is always United, Cigna, Florida Blue. They might be up here. NHP is about a 15% differential. And it comes down to network contracting. It comes down to little things mechanical, like you do have to choose a primary care, but you can go directly to a specialist. But having that routine care at a physician's office and going back to that physician when you have a cold and those things does make a difference on your claims. So all those little things do make up a difference and why you're seeing a difference in rates. We are not buying this business. I assure you, United Healthcare, NHP is not in the business of coming out and getting into a situation where we want to buy your business. We've actually offered a second-year rate guarantee tied to your loss ratio. So we've also put that out there for you as well. So we want to partner with you, not 1 year, not 2 years, 5, 10 years, just like we have with other entities in the area. So with that, I thank you for your time. I don't know if you have any questions.
Why are we not able to get United Healthcare instead of the Neighborhood Health Partnership?
You can get the United Healthcare, but the NHP product, because the little things like choosing a primary, even though you go wherever you want, network discounts, we do have differentiation, especially up in this area, with NHP from a contracted rate with our providers versus that of United. And then there's other things that go into the NHP from, again, I mentioned the nurse behind the scene, identifying gaps in cares and those types of things that make up that differential. NHP, again, from 2005 to now is about a 15% differential from our legacy United. And I will tell you that NHP business runs extremely well for us. It's one of our most profitable businesses from an overall offering perspective. We have so many groups, national accounts, we have we have other public sector entities that have NHP and offer United Healthcare right alongside of it as a buy-up, as you guys are potentially thinking about doing as well.
What are some organizations or businesses locally that you that has NHP? Because I'd never heard of them until tonight.
We can get you a list. We can even get
Okay.
you references if you want. I can't think of
Okay.
any right off the top of my head, but we have several all the way up into this.
And I know the school district has United Healthcare. They don't have the NHP.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but I assure you, we have close to 500,000 members in the area with NHP, from small group to large group to national accounts. So we can give a list to Christian and the Gehring team to, as references if you want to reach out to them so that you could see that there's no drop off. It's all on one platform. It's the same claim system. When your members go out to look up for a doctor on NHP, they go to myuhc.com. Everything is identical to that of United. It's just it's on a different type of paper filed with the state, and that's one of the differences there.
So with the, being that these are owned by the same groups, if you already have United Healthcare and then get the NHP, they still would be considered as two separate entities? And one would be primary, one would be secondary? Or is it gonna register as being all United Healthcare, the two?
NHP is a United Healthcare company. It's just a product within our suite of products. It's on HMO paper, meaning, as mentioned earlier, you have to live or work in the state of Florida to enroll in that product. The United product is more of an insurance where you just go wherever you want. We have built the Network Flex product that allows you to have NHP in Florida, but have that wrap with the UHC national network that you can utilize. So it's just basically it's two different products, and one's called Neighborhood Health. And one of the reasons we kept the name Neighborhood Health is because in Dade and Broward, when we purchased it, it had a very, very strong brand name and continues to in the community today.
So one would be primary, one would be secondary, and they're totally separate in terms of filing claims?
Well, in terms of filing claims, it's the same company. We pay the claims out of NHP, out of the same platform that we use for United. So I'm not sure I follow the question.
I have both. I would have both. So if I went to the doctor or the hospital, one, would it just be considered one? Or would I have a primary and secondary?
But under two different entities?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
NHP
It would be a
and,
coordination of benefits at that point, because you have one is primary and one is secondary.
okay, so
Yeah.
they would be separate.
Yeah, it's two different coverages.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Lawson.
can you tell us a little bit about your rate guarantee for that second year? And then also in regards to the loss ratio, if you just give us some details on that so we can understand what this guarantee looks like.
So basically, it depends on how the loss ratio is running and what kind of increase will be tied to it. It is a rate cap, so, actually, I need to borrow my glasses. So if you run from 0 to 65%, you'd be looking at a rate cap of 0, no increase. 65 to basically 70, you'd be at a 3% increase. 70 to about 74.9 to 7.9.
I'm sorry, could you slow down just a little
Yeah,
bit for
sure,
me?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Go ahead.
Okay, so 70 to 74.9 the cap is 7.9% of an increase. 75 to 79.9 would be 12.8% increase. 80 to 84.9 is a 17% increase, and then anything above 85% would then be negotiated.
Okay, Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
So if we've been running at an 80% ratio, we're going to be looking at a 70% increase, if not higher, by next year, if we don't take a rate guarantee. But even if we do, with the loss ratio of being at 80%, we're still going to be possibly looking at a 70% increase. And that's with changing our provider and also switching carriers from now to next year. So this initial savings of 1.8, which will be transpired to the city of 800,000, could be a major concern for us again next year with those numbers.
Madam Chair, if I may, and hopefully with, the plan design changes, it would allow for some better numbers, so we can actually start pulling our numbers back in that 60%, 65%, because that's really for lack of better terms, the sweet spot that we want to find ourselves in. And as previously discussed, inserting some consumerism into the proposal certainly adds an element to it, and the situation where if an employee knows that the board looks to potentially seed the account by providing $1,000 next year and $1,000, if they are not utilizing the plan and they're able to save that money, they have a situation where 100% of their health care costs can be covered. And that's usually what you see happen in most cases, that at least 60 to 65% of people that have a high deductible health plan or a health savings account actually carry money forward or even plan out some of those procedures or things that they may want to have done until they have the cash that covers the maximum out-of-pocket expense.
Follow up, Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
I kind of disagree. I think that with those high deductibles, they dissent from actually visiting primary care physicians and going to doctors because of their concern for the out-of-pocket costs and that initial fee that they're actually going to have now with the high deductibles versus saying that they're going to continue to go when they have a minimal cost. So I do understand that our loss ratio has continued to rise. We have to address it, but we haven't even addressed the preventative cares. We haven't talked about what options or programming we can put in place to actually help our staff and employees to actually bring that ratio down. Because realistically, if we don't have anything implemented and to discuss right now to talk about lowering that ratio, I don't see it going down or being reduced, and we'll still be in a position where it's going to cost us a 17% increase based on our 80% average we've seen over the last few years.
And Madam Chair, to that point, having that preventative care is covered 100% under the plan, and I think under all plans, but having a situation where conceivably the employee can go to the doctor and not have to pay anything, in essence, in my opinion, incentivizes them to say that I know I have this $2,000 that is in this account in addition to this is a payroll where it's 3 checks in the month and I'm not getting the payroll deduction. That I think is a mechanism to where would provide that incentive for the employee to go, because they're not taking money that's already been taxed out of their check to pay for, a physician's visit. They'll just pull from that account. And I think it makes for a smoother transition, but that's something that we can discuss in more specifics when we bring back, who the entities are that are on that network, as far as who the other references are, and what would a employee that finds themselves in this situation, what would their out-of-pocket experience would be, or would their experience be with the plan design changes that we can put together for the discussion with the board on Wednesday.
Final follow-up, Madam Chair. Also, I'd like to just kind of schedule a meeting as well, just to kind of get as much information as possible. Like Councilwoman Botel, I'd like to see what additional information between now and Wednesday we can set up.
No problem.
Is this a time-sensitive issue that we need to have it for Wednesday?
This is something that, in the event that the board doesn't make a decision on this matter at your meeting on Wednesday, that we need to really get clarity from the board prior to the adoption of the budget, because it is such a large line item in the budget itself. So if the board wanted to pull the item for more discussion, I would just ask the board to consider that we would call some type of special meeting or what have you between now and the end of the month, so we can get this resolved and get everything in place, because there's also a educational component that we want to get out to the employees and educate.
No, that's provided we go that route. But, Mr. Evans, let's, what we're not about to do is about to be backed into a corner. We got presented with this when we were in the League of Cities. I know, this is something that's important, but it shouldn't come at us having to do a special meeting and it becomes a sense of emergency. And clearly, what I don't understand is how we even get to this point of having to make a decision when we've only had 4 days to review this information. If that's going to be an issue for the budget, then that's an issue that administration needs to take up and figure out something else. But you can't expect us to commit to a decision like this. Let's just take the 1.8 off the table. We're talking about probably a $12-13 million decision over the next 3 days when we've only had this for all of 36 hours. And that's not fair to us, because if we commit to NHP, that's exactly what we're doing, from the cost of the employer's cost for $800 and some odd dollars for 500 employees, plus the $1.2 million, and to even think about 80% increase already at 17%. I just don't even know how we even have this discussion at this point.
Well, to your point, Mr. McCoy, that's why I asked if this was a time-sensitive issue. Because we do have other budget meetings, we could have a special meeting before the budget meeting. We don't have to have a totally separate day for a meeting to discuss this. If we're not comfortable with making a decision between now and Wednesday, we can have a special meeting just attached to one of our budget meetings, which would give us enough time to review and meet, because I know I can't meet with him before Wednesday, to be able to have that conversation and give us enough time to do some research on it. I do understand Mr. Evans, has only been with us maybe a month now. So, and this is usually stuff that we start 2, 3, 4 months prior. And so we're kind of under the gun as it is because we had not started any conversations regarding the budget. But if that would be an option to have a special meeting before one of our budget meetings, if everyone is still not comfortable with making this decision before Wednesday, I think that would be something that we could do without causing us to have to come for a separate day of a special meeting.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead.
I agree. I do have some reservations about making a decision on Wednesday in regards to this large budget item. I would like to have more information in regards to the plan that's on the table and the presentation from Aetna. I think that both of those should come back to us to make some type of decision on, at least get more information on both of those. And we can do that at, maybe the next budget workshop that we have. We can put it on the agenda beforehand to have some additional discussions, but I do not want to see it on the agenda for Wednesday. Take it off.
Madam Chair, if I may,
Yes.
just as a point of clarity, obviously, in the perfect world, to your point, this should have been discussed months ago. However, the reality is that we find ourselves in this particular situation because of some other factors. But I would encourage the board that in the event that we do want to have more substantive conversations about this, that we look to schedule, because we did move the meeting on the 29th. We were looking at the possibility of having the meeting on the 26th, which is that Monday, the next Monday, to replace that 29th meeting, and we can have this as a special meeting prior to the start of the budget session or at the conclusion of the budget session on the 26th, assuming that there's no conflicts, because right now we're bumping up against the CRA's budget, we're bumping up against regular meetings, so we have a limited time here with respect to when we can get this, but I think a week gives us enough time to meet with the board individually, to have the consultants present, and to provide some clarity on the plan and how the plan design works and what the rationale was behind it. But also on the other side, if there is additional modifications and tweaks that are happening to the plan or to the proposals that the city is receiving, for the consultant group to work through those things, because we did get an email today that the numbers changed, so it just shows you that this is still a fluid process. It's no intention by staff to bring the board something that is half cooked or half prepared. It's just an evolving process, as you can imagine, when you're dealing with so many moving parts associated with this. So if the board would be inclined, we will pull that item from the agenda on Wednesday and bring it back to you next week, Monday, assuming there's no conflicts with respect to your schedules.
When did we change the August 29th meeting?
We discussed about the possibility of having it earlier in the week, because I know that the board has a meeting on, I believe, Tuesday and Wednesday, and I think Monday is open. I'm still working through some nuances of the schedule, but it is the pleasure of the board as to what your calendar looks like that we can.
Are we having a utility district meeting?
On the, no,
None this month?
none.
All right, so the 26th, is that
That's a regular
set?
workshop.
Hmm?
That's a regular workshop meeting, right?
No, I didn't have it. I
I
don't
don't
know.
have it.
I didn't have the 26th
We
down.
didn't have the 20, we had the 29th.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so that's.
I have the 29th.
I don't have my
So why we
schedule
can't
with me.
put it on the- Sorry, Madam Chair. Why we can't put it on the 29th agenda?
Well, he's trying to do away with the 29th.
Yeah, and do it on the 26th. The more,
I don't have
the
my-
more time we have to get this solidified and execute contracts and those types of things, and then provide information to the employees as to whether we're staying with the existing plan, whether we're deviating from that, because we're bumping up to open enrollment and when that needs to occur and the like. So, we would like to, if possible, be able to get it sometime next week.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I would prefer myself to have an individual meeting rather than having it added on to something that's a public meeting. I might have specific questions that other council people don't. I would really like to have an individual meeting so that I
No,
can.
you can,
So-
you're still gonna do that. We're talking about it coming to the agenda. We're pulling it off of Wednesday's agenda.
Well, I agree
and having a-
about pulling it off, but,
Yeah, and then having it added back as a special meeting.
but if it's a special meeting,
On a
we
budget
need a,
workshop
we need
day.
a voting meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll call
A
a
special
meeting.
meeting, yeah, it would be
Okay.
separate from the workshop.
Well, that's my point about if this is something that's obviously not prepared, then I don't know that I'm comfortable with making a decision like this, changing carriers. And I say the same thing, not just for insurance. I had the conversation with Mr. Sherman today, about another matter, but if it's not prepared, then I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel like I'm rushed into something when using your explanation is half cooked. If it's not correct, then, I don't want to feel like I'm pressured as a member of the board when we have everything gets politicized here, and it
But on the
shouldn't.
26th next week, having it next week?
That's fine, but what I'm saying is, we shouldn't be put at the last minute to make a decision.
I mean, I agree, but it really is, it is what it is in a sense, because usually we start budget discussions back in March, He only got here a month ago, so, this is where we are, so we can only just try to move forward from it.
Madam Chair, I would be in agreement with us just trying to get a special meeting for Monday. Gives the entire council a time this
Yeah.
week to try to meet individually with Mr. Evans, get some more insight, speaking with some residents and employees, and just get an understanding of what direction we need to go. And then by Monday, hopefully that'll give our staff enough time to incorporate it into the budget with the direction we're going.
All right, so I don't have my calendar with me, but I will check. Hopefully 26 is fine.
Madam Chair?
And so we will not have a meeting at all on the 29th?
Correct.
Okay. Ms. Lanier?
That just answered my question.
Okay. All right. Is there anything else for this item?
Madam Chair, that's it.
All right, well, we stand adjourned.